Nice to see all of you here. My name is Alona, and I'm a senior user experience designer at Godel, and I will be assisting in today's webinar. And yeah, let's just wait one more minute for people to join us. So yeah, you can go for a cup of tea. Yeah. Yeah, so let's probably just start. Good evening, everyone. And once again, my name is Alona, and I'm the Senior User Experience Designer at Godel, Georgia. So we are all here in honor World Usability Day, which is actually tomorrow. But yes, in Godel, we have decided to go with this nice tradition to celebrate it with some webinars during the week. And so today is my special pleasure to assist Adam with his exciting topic about inclusive design. And he will be our last speaker for this World Usability Week in Godel this year. So yeah, let's probably start. Adam, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to host you here. I hope this presentation will be, entertaining enough for you. Today, we are going to get to know something about inclusive design. What is it? Why bother? And before that, I would like to introduce myself because not everyone may know me. My name is Adam, of course. I am a lead UX designer at Godel Technologies Europe. I'm based in a beautiful city, Łódź in Poland. And in general, I have more than 5 years in UX design industry. I used to work with, banking, real estate, shipping, hotel, gastronomy industry. And areas of my expertise are mostly connected with UX and UI design, but especially with design system and accessibility. And I'm, an accessibility enthusiast. One thing I wanted to mention that you can see here is that I have a minor hearing impairment. And, it's like bilateral hearing loss since birth. And this condition has had an impact and continues to affect my life in terms of outside world and the digital world. And because of that disability, after I started my journey in UX industry, after many years, I began to explore areas connected with accessibility that led me to universal design and ultimately to inclusive design that I have a pleasure to present you today. And I had a lot of voices from UX experts in Poland and abroad about how important it is to think beyond accessibility. And it's important not only for me, not only for you, not only for me with my hearing loss, but for the whole humanity. And, after all, that's why we have UX design at all, right? That's why we have UX designers. And I'm not ultimate expert in this area of inclusive design, but, I still need to learn a lot about this. But I believe that it will change the world at some point, and that's why I wanted to invite you on this journey. So, what is inclusiveness? Because that's how we are supposed to start. do you have any ideas? Feel free to mention some, definition, words, terms. What is inclusiveness in your opinion?
So yeah, guys, I forgot to mention we can use the chat, or you can unmute yourself and
Yes, feel free to take a part if you
yeah.
want. And this is a definition from, a dictionary. And the dictionary definition of inclusiveness is simply something that doesn't leave any person, part, group out. So in other words, something is inclusive if it doesn't exclude a person, a part of a group, and people. But this is only a Cambridge Dictionary definition. What is more important that, we are all different, and being inclusive means that you act based on the belief that everyone has inalienable rights. For example, people have rights to express themselves without being penalized for certain differences, right? People have right to choose an occupation and engage in work that pays a competitive wage and allows them to use their abilities. People also have rights to, be protected from removal or expulsion simply because they are different. And people have right to be respected and appreciated as, valuable members of their own communities, despite of the fact that they are different. So we have all one thing in common. As you can see, we want to make a positive impact. So what is an example of being inclusive? And if we talk about being inclusive, we talk about, using language that includes everyone, that avoids using gender terms when speaking to people. We talk about, challenging stereotypes. Most of us hold unconscious biases, but if we recognize this and consider what first impressions are making, when we meet people, we can start to be like more conscious of them and challenge our own thinking. We need also to avoid assumptions based on people's, appearance, gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, disabilities, education, etc. So this is what makes us inclusive. But what is inclusive design? Any ideas? It's connected with inclusiveness, but a bit broader.
Yeah,
If
to
no
design
answer,
something, to design something just in keeping in mind that we are all different, and to do the design for everyone.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And there are many differences that impact the way people experience the digital world, right? From age, gender, vision, location, education. Each difference affects not only our real world, but also affects digital inclusion and experiences. So designers, especially UX and UI designers, as builders of the digital world, it is our job to build products that are usable by and inclusive of as many people as possible. And to do so, it's important that we plan for many differences that make up our users. So the word inclusive is now being used in product design, and we have inclusive design term. And sometimes it's called universal design. But inclusive design is responsible for making places usable by everyone, regardless of age, ability, any other circumstances. So, why is important? Aside from the benefits of inclusion mentioned before, inclusive design in general operates on basis, that designing a product or a space for the broadest range of people possible creates better design and benefits everyone. So in other words, inclusive design described methodologies to create products that understand and enable people of our backgrounds and abilities. And it considers the full range of human diversity with respect to ability, language, culture, gender, age. And it empowers designers to create products whose experiences serve as many people as possible. That's our job at all, right? So inclusive design, it's really important to remember that it does not suggest that there's always possible to create one product, right? One experience to address all needs, all people, all humans. Instead, we need to think as inclusive design is like a guidance, a way to respond to diversity in our population. In other words, to design inclusive is to design thinking about us, about people whose situation changes day by day, and it is the design of environments, products, and services to be usable for as many people as possible. And it's based on the observation that is most important thing, that things designed for the average tend to be, like suboptimal for the vast majority of people. As nobody of us is precisely average, right? We are someone, we are some, we are not average. And I would like to illustrate it a bit, just to make it more clear what does it mean to design inclusively. And what we can see here is a button, right? And look at the size of this button. We're not talking about the words, but the size. Why this button is so big? Because when we talk about inclusive design, we talk about accessibility, and designs should be accessible for people with disabilities. So, for example, in this case, this button is not flat. It's it's bigger. It's three-dimensional. Because if that button was flat and flush with surface, that would require our finger to push it, right? And some people cannot use the finger to push the button. So if we make the button stick out like it's like three-dimensional, a person can activate it with larger body parts, such as knee, such as even head, right? Because disabilities are different, and we design some things just to include more people into it. Another example, it's it's a stair, it's an entrance, but inclusive design looks for solutions that fit everyone. And instead of building entrance with narrow stairs and narrow wheelchair ramp, the entire entrance might be a slope that is attractive, right? It's barrier-free and minimalistic. It looks nice and it's functional. So it's the mesh that include not only people with disabilities, but other people who use stairs in a normal way, right? So it's more effective, it's more inclusive. Other example is like from our, from my hometown, from Łódź, and we are talking about that black screen out there. It's still, it's still inactive. But what is it? It's a table that will show you, what time the train will pass by, what time you can expect and train. But there's some other thing. This thing has also a button that is not visible on this picture, but that button, that big button, allows you to push it and hear something, right? Hear everything that is connected with train that is about to come, hour, day, train type. And it's really important to include such features because information in general may be presented in visual, textual, audio, and tactile form. And in this case, when we include more ways to present information, it will include more people. So in this case, we can, we can make people with, glasses to see it better, or just to push the button, we can make them to hear with audio that information instead of looking at this. So we include more people. But all previous examples was about, mostly accessibility, mostly for people with disabilities, not only, but also. And this example is kind of different because we're talking about customization. And this is a general website. It's a Sephora website, sephora.com. And you can see a filter that is called age range. And why is that important in terms of, inclusive design? Because when you talk about customization, allowing designs to be customized in every imaginable way by users, we include more people to it. So, for example, Sephora allowed users to search skincare products by age range, right? And this design is inclusive just because it enables users to find products that target age-specific concerns like, for example, acne or wrinkles. So we include people that are not the general users of our products. We include more people and allow them to find something just for them easier. The other thing that it's not pretty common in Poland, I'm not sure about the other countries, but it's like gender neutral bathroom. And gender neutral bathrooms are becoming standard in many public buildings across, Canada, across China, even United States. And I found some information that, according to Europe, more than 160,000 businesses in United States choose to implement that kind of change and, gender neutral bathrooms. Because, installing restrooms like this provides an inclusive space when people don't need to label their gender and choose based on it. So it's also inclusive design. And I mentioned, give me a second. I mentioned inclusive design, I mentioned universal design, and I mentioned accessibility. So what's the difference? And the difference is pretty complicated. But I think it's there is something that allow us to distinguish these three terms. So I prefer use such kind of diagrams that show you the main difference visually. So in this case, you can see accessibility, we can see usability, and we can see inclusive design as an area that is broader than accessibility itself. Because accessibility is inside inclusive design, but also involves location, language, education, age, and gender. And where is universal design? In a simple words, I think that universal design is pretty close to inclusive design itself, because universal design is the design of products and environments to be usable by all people, the same thing as inclusive design, but to the greatest extent possible without the need for some kind of adaptation and specialized design, right? So in other words, accessibility has a narrower scope than inclusive design in that, it's focused on specific accommodation, right? Accessibility focuses on accommodating physical and cognitive disabilities, while universal design is, a design of products, but to be usable by all people, but without the need for adaptation or specialized design, right? So In this case, there is a main difference. Inclusive design does not enforce a single design solution without the need of adaptation. Inclusive design might offer different design solutions in order to avoid excluding anyone for using a given product, like helping the product to reach more users while reducing the possibility that users will be alienated. So in other words, inclusive design accepts and embraces multiple design variations so long as they achieve the desired outcome. And unlike universal design, inclusive design was actually introduced as some kind of a framework for designing digital products. So in other words, accessibility is an outcome and inclusive design is a process. And that's the most important thing I would like you to take out of this in terms of definitions when we talk about inclusive design, universal design, accessibility. Inclusive design is a process. And while I hope it's more clear what is it to design inclusive, what is inclusiveness, what is a difference between them, I would like to talk a bit about inclusive design principles. And I would like to highlight one thing, that I won't go through all principles one by one, explaining you what is a principle, why is that here, why we need to, do it this way, because there's a lot of, description from principles. And I know that you can probably find a lot of websites, and I will share some websites for you here. But I would not focus on plain definition because it would be boring. And this one way to explain what inclusive design principles are, right? Recognize exclusions, learn from diversity, solve for one, extend to many. There's a source, of course, you can find it. So, designing for inclusivity not only opens up to, our products and services to more people, but it also reflects how people really are. And this is one set of definition I found in terms of design principles, but not the only one. It was formed by Microsoft, but I feel like this one is more important because it this inclusive design principles mentioned here, the 7 points, are about putting people first. It's about designing for the needs of people with permanent, temporary, situational, or changing disabilities, all of us in general. And the intent to give anyone involved in the design and development of websites, developers, designers, UX professionals, even product owners, Scrum Masters, innovators, a broad approach of inclusive design. So I highly recommend to save that website when you think about inclusive design, because all principles are described there with some examples really, really well. And going through all single principle one by one would take a lot of more time that we have. But I really recommend to go there. I would like to highlight something different, because while these principles are really important, I would like to focus on something else, which is 4 pillars of inclusive design. It's not official set of inclusive design principles, but I like it because it's simple, it's really easy to remember, and I will explain some of them in the last part. So no user is average. That's something I mentioned before. Every user deserves equal access and provide understandable content of every user and respect. So remember that there's a source as well. The sources will be at the end of this presentation. And the next questions that will allow us to talk more a bit more about activities, it's why bother with inclusive design at all. So imagine that we live in a world that sometimes we have to face challenges, face some tasks, for example, in school, and not everyone is, designed as a human to do the same things, right? Some of us have something, we are prepared for something better than for the others. And another example is that some of you may be able to do more things. Some of you may be a good runner. Some of you may be good swimmers. Some of you, is afraid, even, when they think about, going into water, into lake, into river, right? So about those who have special requirements related, to access to information and the information in the internet, whether as a result of long-term or temporary disability, we have to think that, if you think that you have not used internet in a state of temporary disability, remember the time when, for example, I don't know, you broke your arm and you lost your glasses. You are not, able to perform certain actions, right? Just because of some reason. So when we, for example, when we accidentally sat down on our glasses and when we got stuck in, your big toe cutting, I don't know, grandma's hands and tried to tinder with plaster, I tried to tell you that our circumstances change rapidly as a result of, deteriorating health, activities, or work. And personally, we as UX designer, we should ensure that users of our products can derive pleasure and satisfaction from using them. And in other words, disability affects all of us, even if it's not called directly a disability, right? And because disability is context dependent, it's not just about specific health problem or aging, but a person can be temporarily impaired. For example, if you have experienced life with newborn baby, you will know how quickly you have to learn to do things with one hand. I have experienced that thing recently. And similarly, if you are working and updating like Twitter at the same time, or Facebook, you might just benefit from design that has been optimized for partially sighted people. And accessibility in general is not binary, all or nothing, right? Black and white. There's no one thing or nothing. There's a spectrum. There are a lot of things between. And this is something that we have to remember. So what we can do to pay attention to inclusive design, to think about it, to design inclusively. The first thing is to accept it. Because if we want to design for humans, we have to accept variation. And that's something I talked at the beginning, that there's no such thing like average person. We are some. And when we think about design, about developing products, we always think about the vast majority of people, right? We have general personas, we have a general approach, we design products that are, that are supposed to be for everyone. And the thing is, and that was the most surprising thing I discovered, and I agree with that, we should design for extremes, right? Not for everyone. The middle, the vast majority, will take care of itself, right? Design for extremes, because extremes have problem, not the vast majority. People will still be able to use your website, your product, but people with disabilities, people with some, certain impairments won't, if you won't design the product in their way. to make them, use it comfortable, in a comfortable way. And the second thing is leading us, to create personas with limitation. And what's that? We, as UX designer, as product managers, we often think about our users. Like, for example, when we talk about banking industry, we have a mother with 2 kids that has some account. We have older entrepreneur with some some abilities to do certain things in the banking transactional system. But we don't think about people who are different, about the extremes. So what happens when you go, break arm? What will happen when we give our product to people who suffer from some eye defects, color blindness? And what will happen when we give our product to people who use it in a different way, while traveling, no space, on the boat, in a train, in a bus? Circumstances are different when they use a product in that way. And we don't ask, we don't think about it. So the first thing we need to do is to map users based on behaviors, not based directly on personas. In this case, when you talk about creating impact map of expected behaviors, we need to plan the journey we want our users to have, and we need to, based on behaviors, we have to think how they can reach our endpoint. And that leads us to the next thing, which is the most important, mindset. Because when we design something, when we develop our product, we often think about solutions. We need that feature, we need this feature, we need to provide people this or that, but we do not ask. And we need to ask instead of propose any solutions. Ask people what they are, who they are. And inclusive design is defined as a process, and asking questions: what will happen when these people will do something, will break arm, will break leg, etc.? What will happen? How will they use our product? So inclusive design is also a mindset that means making sure that no one is excluded from initial conceptions, user research, prototyping, building of product and services. And few things to test. You all can ask yourself a question. Do you see where you are and what you do? Can you do everything you want? And small exercise for you for tomorrow. This will be Thursday. So if you want, you can't use a mouse on trackpad, and try to work with that, right? Try to work with your work environment, with your tools, with your computer, without mouse or a trackpad. You will experience some kind of disability. You will experience how people without, hands that are, able to use it, how they experience using some products. And it will open your eyes on certain things that are or are not inside your products, and it will open your eyes on something that you could or should include in your products just to support people like this. And it's just only one case, and we have more cases like this. What is more, and what is basically one of the last things I would like to share with you, inclusive design is an ongoing process, right? Because, when we talk about work on products, we talk about user research, we talk about UX design, and including research early and often in our design product development processes is vital if you want to build an inclusive product. So your research will affect how inclusive or how not inclusive your designs are, right? If you test your solutions with only one group of individuals, your results will heavily bias toward that specific group. And as a result, your designs will heavily favor that certain group and exclude other groups of people from using your product. So you have to remember that you should include more and more different groups of individuals just to create more spectrum of people that are or are not supposed to use your product. So this is more for designers, but not only. Whether you are exploring a new product or feature, or revamping an existing one, inclusivity should happen at all stages of the product: early stage, mid stage, late stage. So for designers, it's important to integrate inclusivity into every phase, not only earlier phases of the design process, but every stage, every phase, just to remember that we should incorporate the whole process to make our product more inclusive. In other words, we have to think about including people, not excluding by not asking a question, by going through one tunnel that includes only people in general, right? So, and that's something I would like you to go out with after this presentation, to be open-minded, to open for inclusiveness, and to open for different groups of people, not only the general group. It takes time. It's not easy at the beginning. It takes time to learn the principles, use the principles, but it will pay off, because if you will design for and develop the product for extremes, the vast majority will be still there. You will include more people, you will increase the ability to use your product for many people. And that was basically everything. Here are sites that are worth to visit, and you can just write it down or go on this website. And thank you. That was everything from me. And do you have any questions, concerns, or comments on that presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Yeah, guys, if you have anything to ask, please do.
I hope it was not boring. I can see something on the chat. It's thank you very much, Sami. My pleasure.
Yeah. Adam, I have a small question. I was just wondering if you have ever had in your experience some interesting cases with inclusiveness and in your project. Do you remember something, maybe, I don't know, on the user testing session you
Yeah, I can share something, actually. I mean, it's not connected with my current product, but I had a chance to design a product that involves some kind of application for hotel, and that application was involved with using certain software on the stationary form. When you talk about closing doors, calling for some help, assistance in a hotel room, we had that really small screen. And when we talk about stationary phone, we cannot design things like on mobile phone, because mobile phone is designed to use it in your hand. You use it with your thumb or two hands. So the thumb is the finger that does the most when you use your mobile phone in general. And in that case, it was not possible to do that. So to include more people, we had to go with a interface that was designed for people who are not using thumb, who are using different fingers. So we had to go through a lot of people that are using, some touch panels in a different way, right? Is it big enough for your finger? Is it big enough for your palm? Because sometimes you use two fingers, sometimes you use palm, sometimes you use your elbow because you have two things in your hands. So keeping that in mind, we had to design interface to be big enough and usable enough by people who have to touch that panel with not only one finger, but also with elbow, or if someone has bigger fingers to be able to use that. But that was one case. And the other case was, involved with my disability, because, I always appreciate that when, I watch Netflix, I watch Disney Plus, etc., because they have some subtitles. Without subtitles, I'm not able to listen to, the voice from the TV. I don't have that problem with headphones here, but when I watch something on TV, it's really problematic for me to hear something without subtitles, because in order to hear everything, I would need to increase the volume to the maximum, and other, people that watch the TV would be, overcome by this noise. So when you design, a TV, for example, some, television, you need to pay attention to the quality of sound, because it may be strange for some of you, but there's a difference, not only with, quality of, speakers in TV, but also with some kind of voice tone. So when I had a chance to design something that was, supposed to include voice audio, I really like when you include different voices, like you have a car navigation, you have like a man voice, woman voice, but it's also worth to think about different tones of voice, because people with disabilities like me often care about the tone of voice, because sometimes it's better to hear some higher voice than lower voice. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a very important topic for the design and the world.
Yeah, it's really hard to to include that, because it's something new, and not everyone is aware of such things when you don't experience such things, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I can see that a lot of people thank you, and yeah, we seems like we don't have any questions. Yeah, so I would like to thank you, Adam, as well, and thank everyone who joined this session. And today was our last webinar within this Godel Usability Week. And yeah, so looks like we have this nice tradition in Godel to have World Usability Week. And so maybe see you next year about something new.